Hey! In this video I want to show you 14 quick tips how you can easily improve your product videography shootings. First of all, I want to show you a teaser I made last week and then I break it down for you. My tip number one is don't use a wide aperture. I know normally you should use a wide aperture to get that shallow depth of field, but in product videography, especially when you have small objects and you come very close to the object to film it, the shallow depth of field gets even shallower. And if you use a macro lens like I do with an f1.8 and you film it from 15 centimeters distance, you get a shallow depth of field of about half a millimeter, which makes it very hard to keep everything in focus, especially when your camera moves. So to avoid this problem, use a lens with an f4 or even f8. If you want to create a dynamic video, you need movement in your shot. Now this movement can be real or fake. You can create real movement, of course, when you move your camera around your subject. And this can be done either handheld or motorized. You very often see videos when the camera moves quickly to a subject and in the end the subject is perfectly in focus. Well, this is very hard to make in reality. That's why you normally start filming close to the subject, pull your focus as you want to have it, and then you move away with the camera. Then you simply revert the clip in post-production and you have the effect that you start from somewhere and come to the subject with the perfect focus. Handheld shooting can get very shaky though if you're not used to it. So I have a few tips for you how you can improve that very easily. If you film something on a table or generally on a flat surface, you might want to film it from above. And it helps sometimes to put a monopod on it and just turn the camera upside down. And then you have a wider grip and you get a more stabilized shot. I like this switch pod here. It's designed to be a vlogging stick, but I almost never use it like this. But it's very handy because you can simply put it on the ground. Another way to stabilize your camera is use a strap. Put it around your neck, lean a bit against the camera, and then you create bigger movements which are way smoother than without it. It just gives you an additional point of stabilization of the camera. A straight dolly shot or a perfect circle movement around your subject is created normally with some motorized help, like a slider. Sliders can be used to create straight dolly shots as well as circular movements around the subject, because normally you can adjust the angle the camera performs on the slider while it moves. So by simply adjusting these two knobs, you can make a circular shot or a perfect straight shot. But maybe you don't have a slider and maybe you don't want to have one, but maybe you have a gimbal, like this DJI Ronin S here. Then you can use it for motorized movements as well. You can easily program a start point and an end point and the duration of the movement in the DJI app. So you get buttery smooth pans and tilts with this gimbal. If you don't have both of them, you maybe have a tripod. You can use a tripod, put your camera on it and only put it on two legs. Then move forward and backward and you get a similar movement like on a slider. And you can control the tilt axis by hand while you move back and forward, which can give you some nice effects you wouldn't even get with a slider. So these were some tips for real movement, but you can fake movement in post-production as well. I had this shot here and found it a bit boring. That's why I added a slight rotation and zoom effect and it looked much better. My next tip is about exposure. If you go for a dark vibe, don't film it too dark. Film it a bit overexposed and reduce the exposure in post-production. Don't film in a pitch black environment and hope that your exposure was on spot, because you don't have much possibilities then. Why? Because every digital camera produces noise in low light environments. And it gives you a cleaner result when you darken your shot in post-production than when you try to raise the exposure of an underexposed shot. My next tip is about lighting. Use an overhead light, a big light source. Of course, it always depends on what look you are going for, but in my case I needed a cool, stylized look, and it's almost ever a good idea to put a big soft light source above your subject. You can do this with a C-stand and a light dome like this. I use Godox lights. They are affordable and have a great light quality. If you have some more money to spend, buy an Aperture 120D or something, but you won't notice a big difference. Next tip, use a backlight. It's always nice to have some light behind the subject that separates it from the background, and you put it normally 45 degrees behind the subject. In my case, I used an Aperture MC. I really like these lights. They are quite affordable, have great light quality, and I use them for so many things. And it's always good to have one or two. My next tip is enhance your shots in your editing software. If Hollywood movies would be shown as they came out of camera, you would be disappointed. So it's quite common that footage is enhanced by effects, overlays, and clever editing. Even simple things give you some interesting results, like reverting your shot. In this scene, I filmed the case of the airport while I closed it. I reverted the footage and now it looks like it's magically self-opening, which wouldn't be possible to film that way. A second example and the next tip is to use overlays and effects, like these little light flares. This one here simulates that I used an anamorphic lens where you get these crazy flares from, but it's just an effect that you can easily apply and adjust for your needs. Same here, that's the shot without the light flare, and this with the light flare. Looks much better. The last tip, and a very important one, is learn how to color grade your footage. Like I mentioned before, I filmed everything a bit overexposed to simply have more information in the dark spots of the shot. And as a nice effect, the shot contains less noise, which otherwise you would have to correct in your editing software. So these were my 14 tips for product videography. If you liked the video, maybe give me a like below, maybe subscribe to my channel, and hopefully see you again in the next one.